What does the prosecution need to do on closing argument to secure a conviction? Well, hang on a second and I'll tell you. Hi, Tony DeWitt here, Missouri appellate attorney, retired, and a guy who likes to make the law make sense on YouTube. This is what we're talking about today. Good day. Welcome back. This is the ongoing trial of Brendan Banfield in Fairfax County, Virginia, a case stemming from the February 2023 deaths of his wife, Christine Banfield, and another man, Joseph Ryan. Prosecutors allege that Banfield, who was an investigator with the IRS and carried a duty pistol, was having an affair with the family's Brazilian au pair, Juliana Perez Margalez, and that the two set up an elaborate scheme to lure Ryan to the Banfield home and then stage the scene to look like a justified self-defense shooting during a supposed role-play encounter. Banfield has pleaded not guilty, and his defense attorney, John Carroll, argues the government's theory relies heavily on the cooperating witness and an investigation he says was mishandled. Today, I'm going to walk you through what happened in court and what it may mean going forward. As I've said before, you go to the jury with the case that you have, not the case that you want or that you wanted to have. And sadly, for the Commonwealth in this case, they have a witness who has a few warts on her and is not really a very good person and is getting a heck of a deal. Time served, and then she's going to get kicked free as a bird, to go back to Brazil and talk about how she was the center of attention for a couple of months in Virginia. That's a bad set of facts for the prosecution. So one of the things that happens in nearly every trial is one side or the other essentially plays to the emotions of the people who are going to be on the jury. Now, you may not like that. You may think, well, it ought to be decided on the basis of logic and evidence. And yeah, it should be. Absolutely, it should be. But it rarely is. And that's because whoever has the stronger emotional case, whoever can connect more closely with the jurors, can be in their head saying what they're already thinking, more likely it is that they're going to walk away with a verdict in their favor. And in this case, I do believe that that is the prosecution team here. So, what are some of the things they're going to want to do? I think they're going to want to come out of the gate manufacturing some outrage, something to the effect of, we have a registered nurse, a nurse who prepared herself and spent her work life helping other people. She went to work, did her job, came home, and took care of her husband and her daughter. And basically, at this point, you want to manufacture outrage for two things. First, the killing in and of itself. And second, the defamation of Christine Banfield with this idea that she was into BDSM and fetishes. Because the only evidence that there is that she had any inclination whatsoever in that regard comes from Brendan Banfield, and I think you have to discount it. So you might get up and say something to the effect of, she was this sweet person, a good nurse, took good care of her patients, and he defamed her. He said all these horrible things about her, and on top of that, he killed her in the most brutal and unforgivable way. You would build it up as best you could to make it appear that he's heartless and soulless. And manufacturing outrage in that way and doing it appropriately, that would be a good way to start the closing argument. And after you talked about all of those bad facts, the next thing you would want to do is go through the timeline. And we want to do that in rigorous detail. And you want to walk them through everything that happened prior to the day when Christine was killed and Joe Ryan was killed, and everything after to the point where Brendan was arrested. I think you might dwell on that portion of evidence that showed that 8 months later they were living essentially as husband and wife, and that really poignant statement by the child that says, "Can I call you mommy now?" I really think that would be something that would really tug at the heartstrings of any women on the jury. The idea that somebody who gave birth to a child could be replaced by someone who didn't and who would then call her mommy. That, again, that has strong emotional overtones. It would be a powerful set of facts to display, and it would have a powerful emotional punch. And then, after you get the timeline and all of the evidence, all of the phones, all of the other data, all of that in front of the jury, then the next thing you have to do is you have to start buttressing all of the things that Juliana said in her testimony. While Juliana was evasive, argumentative, and unresponsive to some questions, and really didn't do a very good job on cross-examination, feigning that she didn't have a memory of certain dates and that sort of thing, the fact is, the majority of what she told the jury about what happened is borne out by the physical evidence. It's borne out by the data evidence. It's borne out even by some of his own admissions, Brendan's own admissions. And I think that's very important. You want to buttress her testimony, make her out to be a truth teller. She may be an irredeemable person in terms of having killed this woman and trying to take her place, but she was telling the truth. And then, after you finish buttressing her telling the truth, then you go after Brendan Banfield. And you start with some of the more ridiculous things that he dreamed up to put this scheme together. The idea of getting somebody to come and attack her as if it was her idea, when he knew that she had a bleeding disorder and that no woman in her right mind would want to suddenly have a problem with hemorrhage as a result of silly role playing. I'm sorry for the euphemisms here, but I don't want to get too graphic. There are a lot of things that somebody might be interested in doing if they wouldn't get caught, but there are not too many people who would be willing to risk their personal health by engaging in behavior that could have them exsanguinate. And being a nurse, she fully understood the risks. She fully understood what could happen if she suffered the kind of trauma that could be a product of what Brendan set up for her. Brendan and Juliana set up for her. She could clearly have had pretty severe bleeding as a result of that. It doesn't make sense for her to have dreamed that up and set this up. The other key things are the fact that they never called 911 and that their explanations for it similarly do not make sense. Juliana calls Brendan and says, "Hey, some guy went into the house." There's only two ways to handle that situation. One, ignore it. If indeed the guy is there reading the water meter, it's not that big a deal. I know that supposedly he had a mask on, but maybe she didn't see that exactly right. If it is somebody going there to have a tryst with Christine, which seems kind of unlikely for all the reasons I already stated, then again, why would you go to the house and interrupt that? he's already made the determination that divorce is not an option. And if divorce is not an option, then the only thing, it's a death do us part kind of thing. It's what we in Missouri would call a St. Charles divorce. You have to eliminate the other spouse. And because of that, I can't think that if you get a word that somebody's going into the house and you think they're there to harm somebody, then you call 911. And yeah, you are a federal officer, but you do not have police jurisdiction in Fairfax County. You have IRS jurisdiction, you have a duty weapon, and you have the ability to make a citizen's arrest. But as a federal officer, you're pretty much limited to being able to make arrests for federal crimes. And that's just not going to happen. There's no federal crime involved with what they were doing. I guess maybe wire fraud if the guy was catfishing her or if she was catfishing him. But again, that's not something that ordinarily an IRS agent would be involved in. So the only thing that he's doing when he goes there is essentially taking the risk that he's going to have to defend his conduct under the laws that govern every other person for self-defense. And that's a much riskier proposition. He couldn't really answer the question of why he didn't call 911. He gave an answer, but the answer made absolutely no sense, and she should point that out. In fact, she should beat that into the jury's head. All the different times that he had an opportunity to call 911 and didn't take it. All the times that Juliana had an opportunity to call 911, but he wouldn't let her or told her not to. All of those things come into play, and I think that is one of the stronger arguments. The fact that he didn't allow 911 to be called until after both of those people were beyond salvation. According to Juliana, one of the reasons that he wanted to get blood on Joe Ryan is to make it look like he had been the person who did the dirty deed with respect to Christine. But that allowed him to say, well, I was there holding pressure on her neck. If you have a wound in your neck and you compress it, especially if you compress it bilaterally, you're going to cut off circulation to the carotid arteries. And without carotid artery circulation for more than a couple of minutes, people die, and they die very quickly in that situation. They suffer brain death. Their body might live on, but they're not going to be there ever again. She's got very bad vascular injuries in her neck, and he's trying to hold pressure on it. A bleeding arm wound, sure, you hold pressure. A bleeding leg wound, you hold pressure. In a situation like that, you get them to the hospital as quickly as you can and hope they have a vascular surgeon there who can sew this up and actually save the life. Maybe run lots of blood and blood fluids into her to boost her volume while you're doing that. But again, I think there was purposeful delay in calling 911 until after everybody was convinced that there was no salvation for either of those two individuals. The idea that the moan came from the dog, which is one of the things that the defense invented at the 11th hour, doesn't make a lot of sense either, since one of the things that happens when you have fired several rounds into someone's torso is they do this thing called agonal breathing, and it sounds a lot like moaning. If you watch body cam videos where they have been officer-involved shootings, you'll hear them moaning and you'll hear that agonal breathing. And that's something, once you've heard it, you don't forget it. And once you get to the stage where there's agonal breathing, your chance of being resuscitated successfully drops into the single digits. At least that's been my experience. Then the next thing that the prosecutor needs to do is she needs to debunk the defense. And the defense did go to a lot of effort to put up their digital forensics guy and their blood splatter person. And unfortunately, I don't think either one of those two moved the needle. Certainly Litsky didn't, because Jenna absolutely destroyed him in 20 minutes at the close of his expert presentation. And I would point out all of the things that she got him to admit that essentially undercut all of his opinions. So that's the next thing she needs to do. And then the last thing is to talk about the rebuttal. And you remember when Brendan tried to tell us that he remembered that day and he was going because he had this meeting on an undercover and it was really important to his career, and he was dressed in blue jeans? I mean, come on. Nobody goes to a meeting where you might be promoted in blue jeans. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And of course, that's what the special agent that was called testified to. And he also testified that there was no such meeting. So, again, those are the things that she's going to need to do. And then she's going to need to close her argument with a very strong emotional appeal. And I think what I'd say is one of these people is, in some respect, getting away with murder. She's getting a very reduced sentence and probably flying back to Brazil. But by the same token, the one person who set this all up needs to pay the price. He needs to be locked away from society for the rest of his natural life. You need to close with a strong appeal to do the right thing here. Use your common sense. Common sense tells you that his story doesn't add up, but the state's story does, and you ask for the verdict. And that, I think, would be the way to ensure that you get a conviction in this case. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you being here today. If you have the opportunity today, try to do one kind thing to help somebody else. Any kind thing will do. Buy somebody a Coke, get them a cup of coffee, anything that makes their day better. That would be a way to help make the world a better place. Because after all, isn't that what we're all after? Now, YouTube has a few things that they think you might be interested in, and they're going to be showing you that right up there.